So, you have LPR. You have a bunch of horrible symptoms. You've done everything you possibly can to get rid of them, right? Or have you? Have you tried worshipping the moon? Have you tried ritual magic? Have you tried sigils? Do you even want to get better? That obviously sounds insane, but this is what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, hi, my name's Eddie Stevens. This is Eddie Stevens Training. If you haven't yet checked out my playlist on how to recover from LPR, it's not here where I'm pointing because I don't know how to do the link, but I'm still doing this pointing thing. At some point I'll figure it out and there will be a link there. Right now it's just whatever weird emoji I put there, and I don't know why I'm doing it, but I do. Check out those videos in the playlist though if you have LPR, because that's going to give you sensible, practical advice on how to recover from LPR, or at least what I did and what helped me recover. Maybe you don't have LPR though. Maybe you're more interested in magic, in which case maybe this will be helpful to you. I don't know. This is really for people that have watched the previous videos, and I promised you weeks ago, I think now, this video. So sorry, I suck. I've had so much crap going on in my life that I just couldn't get around to it. Even though I promised a video every week, I suck. It's going to get better though. Now, I said previously that I'm going to lose some people with this probably, and maybe pick some up, and then eventually we will have a thriving moon magic cult. And I think that will happen eventually. But for now, let me just give you a quick disclaimer. Normally on these videos, this is when I tell you I am not a medical doctor, right? So you don't sue me. But that would be weird if I was a medical doctor. A medical doctor is never going to tell you these things. This is not medical advice. If your medical doctor tells you the things I'm going to tell you, you might want to get a different doctor, or not. You might be a great doctor. You might be a witch doctor, okay? And that's fine. But no, the disclaimer I wanted to give you was that I am probably going to repeat things I've said before, because I don't remember exactly what I've said in the previous videos, and I'm being a bit of a hypocrite. I know I tell you to watch the videos. I'm not going to watch them. They suck. Okay, it's boring to me. So I can't look back and see what I've talked about, so I will be repeating myself, but that should be fine. Okay, let's start this video with magic. What is magic? Okay, on a simple level, I describe magic as a rabbit out of a hat. It's creating something from nothing, okay? And that is why all of the arts, and sometimes magic is known as the arts, right? But all of the arts, writing, drawing, painting, acting, stand-up comedy, poetry, music, this is all magic. These are all things that come from nowhere. You have an idea, you have inspiration for say, a poem. Where does it come from? Where does that idea come from? How could it possibly come into existence? It comes from nothing, and that is magic. And you will find that actually everything, when you look at life this way, is magic. Life itself is magic. On the deepest level, magic is everything, okay? And I believe that reality that we're living in is an active magical experience, okay? I do not think of reality as real, or at least not real in the way that we tend to think of it as. I think that reality and all of our experiences, everything you see and feel, including your LPR, if you have it or have had it, as symbolic representations of something deeper going on. On a practical level with LPR, we could say that the symptoms you're feeling are actually manifestations of a deeper psychological, emotional trauma that you've gone through, which I truly believe. But then there's something even deeper. We can go deeper to another level. I'm getting a bit sidetracked. I think that reality is far more like a dream than people typically want to accept. And that is why things like the placebo effect work. I'll explain. When you're having a dream, and say you're not really in control of your dream, right? Maybe on some level you are, but let's say you're having a weird dream where you're in like a scary house and there's a door and the door starts to open, and you know that behind that door is a monster, you know, maybe a vampire, right? And you go, oh, shit, it's a vampire is coming out from that room to get me. If it's happening in a dream, it's going to be a vampire because you've manifested it. Your mind has created that vampire. You believed it would be there, therefore it was there. I think we do this, well, I think it's pretty provable that to some extent we do this in reality. Not as literally as that, not as extreme as that. If I go into my house right now and a door's opening, it doesn't matter how much I think a vampire is going to be behind that door. You know, there's not going to be a vampire there, all right? My ex-wife left years ago. But on a more subtle level, we know, this is not far-fetched, crazy, hippy-dippy bullshit. We know that if you have negative thoughts, which you probably do if you have LPR, like all of us tend to have that in common. We have, whether it was something innate that we were born with or something that happened, more likely something happened to you through trauma that made you start to have horrible levels of self-doubt, expect the worst, self-loathing, stuff like that. Your life probably sucks, and that's typical. People who have a negative outlook on life tend to have shitty, negative lives. There's plenty of evidence that people with a more positive outlook, who expect, maybe not expect things to go well, but have a healthy attitude to things not going horribly wrong all the time, and thinking that life is good and not dwelling on bad things and just generally being more positive, they tend to have good lives, happier, nicer lives, because they are manifesting that. And I do believe that that is an act of magic, in a sense. I do believe that we are manipulating our realities with our minds. I don't know if you heard that was a rooster just then. I didn't need to point it out, but I did. In this sense, we are having a magical experience, and we are manipulating reality through magic. And that's kind of it's exactly what I wanted to talk about, because when I was healing from LPR, I did not use magic at any point to heal. Let me put that another way. It took a long time for me to start applying any sort of magic work to my recovery. But in a sense, I was doing magic to recover without realizing it. And that's one thing that if you get deep into magic, people say all the time, all of us are doing magic all day, every day, without even realizing it. Because like I said, you just deciding you're going to do something and then doing it is kind of a magical act. Sorry if this is a little bit all over the place. It's kind of a tricky subject to talk about, and I'm not used to talking about it. What was I saying? So when I was recovering from LPR, in a nutshell, and if you've seen the videos, you'll know this, my method was to believe that I was fine, to refuse to acknowledge the fear that I'm getting worse or that I can't recover, even when I had bad symptoms, to straight up deny that these symptoms even existed, essentially just live in denial and pretend that I was better. And I got better, and it really happened. And it took me a while, and there was periods where I was like, how am I going to be able to bullshit myself like this? I know I'm not well, right? But at some point, I managed to do it. I managed to just never give up, going, fuck those symptoms, fuck LPR, fuck feeling shitty all the time. I'm going to be okay. And I was, and I am. Let's sidetrack. Let's sidestep what I was talking about for a second, though. How did I get into magic? How did this even come into the equation? I've always been interested in it for reasons that are just too long to get into with you. But a pivotal point in my life and my experience with magic happened when I was walking home one evening. I was walking home from work. It was about 10 o'clock at night. It was a beautiful, warm evening, and there was a full moon, which is important. I was walking home and I was listening to a podcast. This podcast is the Nick Margerison podcast. It's a great podcast, which I have actually been on, although I don't recommend you listen to the episode with me on because it's just a COVID episode and it's kind of boring. I love this podcast. It's basically for crazy people. It's like it's all about, weird conspiracies, alien abductions, religious cults, you name it, all of that crazy world, people who believe whatever, right? Very David Icke kind of stuff, but really good. And a lot of it makes a lot of sense. And I was listening to this podcast, having a nice time, walking home, and then suddenly a bat flew into my face and scared the shit out of me. Flew right into my face, didn't touch me, but it flapped around my face, and I went, oh shit! And I stopped listening to the podcast because I was distracted. Whether that's significant or not, who can say? I believe it was. I believe that that bat was some kind of, I was going to say messenger. That sounds a bit stupid. But whatever it was something that had to happen in order for me to get sidetracked. And I forgot about the podcast and I started looking at the moon. So I started looking at the moon and I thought to myself something that I think often, okay? There are assumptions we have about life, okay? Because we live in a very materialistic, science-based world where we know certain things. We know, for example, that the moon is a rock that orbits the Earth. That's all it is. It's nothing magical. We know this. We know that we evolved from, I was going to say inferior life forms, but that's probably not accurate, but you know what I'm saying. We know that the world is round. We know all of these things. However, we actually don't know anything. We just believe what we've been told and what we're told we should believe. But I like to, just for fun, philosophize and think, what if we're wrong about these things? Because many things, almost everything that people believed, a few hundred years ago, have now been disproved. Or at least we found out we weren't getting quite right. So the things that those people knew were real turned out not to be. And there is no doubt in my mind that a few hundred years from now, we'll be saying the same things about us, right? So I think to myself, I'm looking at the moon, and I've been fascinated with the moon for a long time. And this is a thing, I didn't realize how many people are. There's a lot of hippies out there with like moon tattoos, the moon is their wallpaper on their phone. And we just have a lot of people have an obsession with the moon. We feel a connection to it. I have this, I've had it for a long time. And I was looking at the moon and I was thinking to myself, there's something about the moon, it seems important, it seems significant, it seems magical. I know that there have been many, many cultures that have worshipped the moon. And I wonder what the moon could be if it weren't what we're told it is. That's all I thought. That sentence, exactly verbatim, went through my head. I wonder what the moon could be if it weren't what we're told it is. As soon as I said that, I heard the voice of Nick Margerison in this podcast say, and the moon, which is the home of the goddess Eris, that's what the moon is, that's where she lives. And it freaked me out. Not in a scared way, but it kind of blew my mind. I was like, that's a hell of a coincidence that I happened to be looking at the moon, the full moon, and I ask the question, what could the moon be if it weren't what they say it is? And then he answers me. The home of the goddess Eris. So then I'm like, well, who is Eris? I don't know. I've never heard of that goddess. And it turns out the goddess is a powerful moon goddess, the goddess Eris, a goddess of chaos. And she's existed, I think, in various cultures, has been worshipped by various people. But most recently, she was worshipped by people who belong to the religion of Discordianism. Okay, now, very quickly, Discordianism, or Discordia, I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing it right, but was a made-up religion. Now, some of you will be thinking, well, all religions are made up. Well, maybe, but what I mean is this was a very deliberately, basically a group of philosophers, we'll call them. I'm not even sure exactly who they were, but a group of people got together and decided to make up a religion, come up with their own deity that they would worship, and they would have rituals that they would practice. And I think it was basically, sorry, my dog's barking. Basically, it was an experiment, a sort of philosophical experiment, I think, to see what would happen. So they picked this goddess Eris. Now, one of the founding members of this religion said later, if we'd have known that this was going to work, we might have picked a nicer deity, because the goddess Eris is kind of known for being a bit cruel and toying with people a little bit, something that subsequently I feel like I may have experienced, but I may or may not get into that in this video. The point is, I start looking into this, and I didn't immediately go, oh, okay, the goddess Eris is real. I'm going to start worshipping the goddess Eris. But there is another aspect of magic, or a way of practicing magic called sigil magic. And I want to tell you about that right now. I realize I'm jumping all over the place, but this is what I have done that I have had practical results from, okay? And if you're struggling with LPR, you could try this. Maybe it's going to help. You could try with anything. I've had unbelievable results from this that make no sense. And I really don't want to say it is because I was sort of practicing this with the goddess Eris in mind or the moon in mind. Like, I don't want to say that this is, well, essentially I don't want to say this is all magic, but I have to. That is what I'm saying. So I don't know. But you can try this. You can be a skeptic and it'll still probably work, because I was very skeptical to the point where I tried doing this sigil magic, which I promise I will explain, with absolutely no expectations that it would work. In fact, I was absolutely certain it wouldn't, but it did work, or at least I got the results that I wanted from it. So, what is sigil magic? So, sigil magic works by essentially you create a sigil, which is just a representation, a magical, a picture, a symbolic representation of an intention. Okay, something that you want to have happen. It's essentially a spell, right? So let's say your goal is you want to recover from LPR. So you think to yourself, I recover from LPR. You write that word out, you write that sentence, I recover from LPR. You then cross out all the vowels. You cross out the I, you cross out the O, you cross out I'm not going to name all the vowels, you know what vowels are. You cross out all the vowels, you're left with just consonants. Then you cross out all the repeated consonants. So, I can't figure it out right now, but let's say there were 2 M's in it. You would cross out one of the M's, so you only have 1 M. You don't want any repeated letters. So you're left with a group of letters, okay? You take those letters and you use the letters to create what you think looks like a weird magical symbol. Okay, that intent is important. It's something that you'll just know when you're doing it. It has to sort of look and feel sort of magically, okay? So you end up with this image on paper, like this sort of size probably, made of the letters that you were left with. And it's like a magical symbolic representation of what you want. I recover from LPR. Now, there's lots of ways you can do this, but I'm going to tell you the way that I did it. I would always do it when the moon is up, because for some reason I felt this connection to the moon, and preferably when it was a full moon, but not always, and I still got good results from this. I would go outside with my piece of paper, I would look at the moon with my sigil on the paper, I would look at the sigil, I would really focus on my intent, whatever that was, and then I burn the paper, all right? So you got to be careful, make sure you have it where, usually I would cut it so that there's almost like a handle and the sigil's at the top, and I hold it upright and it burns. And you think about that intention and you watch it burning. And then once it's burned, you drop it, you put it wherever. You know, I have like a big like plant pot that I use that's basically become like a weird cauldron for me. I put all of these burnt papers and ashes in there. And then I look at the moon, and I personally had the goddess Eris in mind, but it was kind of like a sort of 3-way, like a triad of the goddess Eris, God, like the Christian God, and the moon itself. And I literally would think to the moon, and at this point, I'm having a weird relationship with the moon. I mean, I genuinely feel a connection with the moon that I cannot explain. But I'm like, Eris, God, the moon, whatever you are, whatever I'm communicating with, please make this work, right? I realize how crazy this sounds. And it might be. But the fact is, I got multiple results from this. And at some point, this video is getting on a bit. So, God, it's almost 20 minutes, yeah. I will tell you some of the things that I feel like I manifested through this process. But for now, let's wrap this up. Just think about what I've been saying. Think about this idea that reality, I feel like you probably intuitively kind of feel this. Most people do. If you just stop for a second and get into the moment and you think about the miracle of your existence and that this is happening, why is this happening? It's something deep, it's something powerful, right? And just remember what I'm telling you. I believe that you are slap bang in the middle of a metaphysical, spiritual experience. A crazy, impossible really to explain. That's why we have to come up with these stories to explain it. Experience that is pure magic. It's all a weird dream, like dream within a dream within a dream. I don't really know how to explain it any better than that. But consider that you can manipulate your dreams. Okay, some people can do lucid dreaming where they take complete control of their dreams, and then their dream will do whatever they want it to. Imagine all the sex you could. Never mind. But in this reality, like I said, you can manipulate it just through positive thought or negative thought. Give yourself LPR, right? And I mean, that's what the placebo effect is. That's what we're talking about. The placebo effect, I'm sure I've mentioned this on previous episodes. That's the craziest shit, and that is as close to a magic experience as I can think of. We've managed to find a nice way to rationalize it and make it all sciencey, but the fact is, your thoughts are manipulating what's going on in your body, okay? And you are healing. People can heal or hurt themselves just by thinking it, okay? That in itself is a trip. Well, I'm just saying to take it another step further and recognize that the physical world around you is also something you can influence, all right? You really can, and we'll get into this in previous videos, hopefully next week. Hopefully I can bring myself to not slack off and not do it. I should be able to. So if you got anything out of this video, like it, subscribe if you haven't, leave good reviews, all that shit. If you have any questions, ask me any questions. Remember, if your issue is LPR, there's tons of videos. Sometimes people will complain and say, well, you didn't even talk about LPR on a video, or you didn't address this thing. And I'm like, there's a whole fucking playlist. Just watch the like it's right there, except it's not there, but you know what I mean? It's down there somewhere. Sorry, I just realized this thing is sticking out in the way. Has that been there the whole video? How annoying. But yeah. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Any questions, anything you want me to talk about in future videos, let me know. And I'm still figuring this out. There's a lot more that I can tell you about, but I am not by any means an expert. Just like with the LPR thing, I'm just a guy who figured out how to heal. Well, I'm also just a guy who figured out how to do sigil magic and who figured out how to communicate with the friggin' moon. So if you think this is just crazy and not worth your time, move along. I get it. I understand. Maybe you're right, but I know you're not right because I know this is real. Okay? Does that make sense? I'll end this here. I've said before, I'm really bad at ending these things, so I'm just going to end it now.